Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. If you recall, in our last video I showed you how I set up my malware development lab. In this video we will take this one step further by integrating the Elastic EDR in our lab as well. In this walkthrough I will show you how I set up the virtual machine from the ground up, and more importantly how I set up the Elastic EDR in detection only mode. This way it won't block any of our simulated attacks, and we will be able to see the alerts generated in the Elastic UI as well. For all you budding security analysts out there, this is a must watch. I've always advocated for setting up a security lab. Not only is this easy to install, it is also user friendly and free. The insights that you will gain by simulating attacks and watching them unfold via detections in the Elastic EDR are invaluable. Ready to dive in? Let's get started. Alright, so here I am in my virtual machine. This is my Windows 10 virtual machine, which will be our victim virtual machine. This is the same machine that I used in my previous video to create a malware development environment. Now I also have an SSH session to a Ubuntu machine where we will set up our Elastic EDR. I will be setting up the Elastic EDR using this Git repo, which talks about how to set up Elastic EDR as a bunch of containers. So I will follow the steps here. Let me go here and do a git clone. I wanted to do a git clone, but before I do a git clone, I have to install the prerequisites, which are these. So let's do that. Let me do sudo ses. After this installation is complete, I need to install Docker as well. Copy all this. Let's do sudo apt -get update. And do this. Alright, so I think the dependencies for Docker are complete. Let's now install Docker. After the installation of Docker is complete, we will be basically doing a git clone of this repo. Git clone. And remove these. Okay, then cd elastic. Before we move on, we need to change a file. Let's go to nano.env. Over here, we need to change the IP address 92.168.8.136. Basically, the better way is to not expose the Kibana to the outside environment directly, and to install something like an Nginx, which will basically, we will connect to the Nginx, and then the Nginx will route our request to the internally hosted Kibana. But I'm being a bit lazy, and this is also being set up in my lab, so I don't want to go through the hassle of setting up Nginx for this reason. All right, but if this was a production environment, I would certainly be installing Nginx as a proxy in front of this. I'm also changing the password over here, and I will enable the Windows detections as well. Now this will not enable all of the Windows detections. This will only enable some of them, and then we will have to go to the Elastic UI to enable the rest of them, but this should do a good enough job for now. All right, that's fine. Now let's do this and say start. Now this will start the installation of the Elastic EDR using Docker. It will take a bit of time. So as soon as this starts, I will pause the video and then resume the video after the installation is completed. All right, the first thing that we get is an issue with the permissions for Docker. For that, we have to run one command. Let me run that command first. And after that, I'll have to basically log off or start a duplicate session. And in the duplicate session, we'll just say this elastic /elastic start. All right. So here I will pause the video and I will resume the video after the installation is completed. The installation of Elastic EDR is now complete. So let me browse to that location. HTTPS 192.168.118.136:5601. Mute this warning. The username is Elastic. The password is p@ssw0rt. p@ssw0rt. All right. So after the installation is complete, the first thing that we'll do is we'll go to the security rules. We'll go to the detection rules. And you see that, only some of these rules are enabled over here. Basically, what we want is that we want all these rules to be enabled. So select all these, bulk actions, and enable. Now this will take some time for the rules to be enabled. In the meantime, let's go and install our endpoint agent on the victim machine. All right, so we'll add the agent here. Say enroll in fleet, select Windows, and we will copy the first 4 commands. Copy. I will install it using the terminal. And we'll paste this. Now these commands will take a bit of time to complete. In the meantime, let's go over some of the code and some of the code of the malware or the payload that we will be executing. So let's start a new session. I will get a new session on 192.168.118.134. Cali. The payload is not over here, but I'm just taking a session over here just to make sure that we are ready for the compilation of our payloads. Cascadia code, semi-bold 16. Okay, apply. We'll minimize this. Now our payload should be in the shares that we had mounted in our previous video. I think the shares have been dropped, so let me mount those again. So map network drive /192.168.118.134 /shared connect using different credentials. Cali. Okay. All right. The shares have been mounted. Let me just rename these shares to dev. All right. Now let me open this, go to the developer folder, and let me open this up in Visual Studio Code. Let's go over our source code. And in the source code, we see that in the beginning, we have payload.h added. In payload.h, we have our shellcode and our shellcode size. Let's go down and look at the main. In main, we have threaded execution enabled. If we go to our threaded execution, we have some initial variables created over here. Then we have virtual alloc, which basically creates a memory segment of size payload length, which is going to be page read write. And then we have the executable memory location being returned over here. After that, we copy our payload, which is our shellcode, to our executable memory, and then we change the protection level from page rewrite to page read and execute. After that, we start a new thread from the location of this executable memory. Okay. And now in payload.h, as I said, we have the size of our payload, and then we have the actual shellcode itself. Shellcode itself is generated using MSF and we talked about it in a last video. I will add a link to that in the description below. And let's look at our makefile. If you look at our makefile, we will see that we are executing this Python command, and after that we are compiling our C code. This Python command, which is the extract met to shellcode via MSF Venom. Let's go here. This is basically, I will install this extension. This is basically the payload which is going to be generated via MSF Venom, and this is the automation of that command. So if you look at our main function, what it does is that it calls the generate shellcode function, which returns the output of the shellcode command or the MSF Venom command. After that, the command is then parsed via the extract payload size and then write shellcode to file. If you look at write shellcode to file, we will see that the payload.h file is being opened and the shellcode that is being passed is being written over here. Okay. All right. So let me delete the created payload over here. And so we've discussed these Python files. We've looked at the makefile as well. Let me discuss the msf2.rc. This is the command. This is the resource file, which is basically used to automate the launch of MSF console. And if I provide this as input to MSF console, everything will be configured properly. Now let's go back and see what is the situation here. All right, so we are in that directory of the Elastic agent. Let me copy the last command, which is this one. And when we run this command, we have to add one parameter, which is basically -- in secure. We have to press yes here, and this will basically install the Elastic agent. The rules have been enabled and we are getting an error that 58 rules failed to be enabled. That's fine. Let's close this. Now the agent installation is started. And we'll see here that the agent enrollment will complete, and after some time, we will see that we will get a confirmation of incoming data as well. While this is happening, let us go and compile our payload. Shared folder, dynamic payload execution, and I will say make output is equal to metshell.exe. Okay, that's fine. If I go to this folder, we'll see that a payload.h has been generated. We have a payload length and we have the payload over here. All right, and we have the payload file which has been generated as well. So that is fine. And we can see that incoming data received is also successful. All right, now I'll go here. I'll go to the endpoint policy. Basically, I'll go to our Elastic Defend. I'll edit the integration here. And in the integration, I will say that I don't want to prevent any payload execution. I only want to detect the payload execution. Save it. Save it. This will allow us to test basically any payload execution and see what happens after the payload is executed. All right, that's fine. Let us now go to our security and go to our alerts window. Okay. Next up, now that the payload has been generated, Let me run MSF console and I will provide this the resource file. I will take a copy of the metshell.exe, copy this and paste it on the desktop. Okay, that's fine. cd cd desktop, and then I will execute metshell. Okay, the configuration is now complete, and we see that Elastic Security detected metshell.exe. It did not delete anything, it just detected it. It's fine. Let us execute this. We have a request to download a payload. It is Elastic Security has detected the malware. That's fine. Now, mind you, our job here is not to evade detection. Our job is to find out what happens when malware is detected and what do we see on the EDR console itself. Now that we have our Meterpreter session going, let me close the SSH connection to my Ubuntu box. And I'm currently here on the Metasploit session. Now the alerts have been generated, but sometimes the EDR console might take some time to catch up and to show the alerts. So I'll give it a couple of minutes and I will resume the video after I see the alerts over here. So after a couple of minutes, I now see that the detection alerts are here. And if I go to analyze this event, I can maximize this. And I can see that Explorer was executing. There was some MS Edge. And here we see our Windows terminal. Inside that we have PowerShell and we have metshell.exe. Now from here, I can say the get UID. And I can say, give me a shell. I will execute whoami/all. And I will also run ipconfig. Okay. So these two commands are fine. Let's close this. And let's look at some of the other alerts. And now we see that metshell executed CMD and we can see some con host as well. If we wait a bit more, we'll get some more details being populated in the same alert tree. Okay. All right. So that's fine. This might take a bit of time to catch up with the activity that we are doing. That is fine. Let me just refresh this once more. And in the meantime, let me exit out of this, go back to our Meterpreter session. And now what I'll do is that I'll try to escalate privileges. So get system, I already ran metshell as an administrator. So get system should work fine. And then from here, I will say load kiwi, which will load the Mimikatz extension into Metasploit. And after that, we can run creds_all. This will give us all the creds. That's fine. And if I refresh here, we should see some more alerts related to LSAS manipulation and accessing the LSAS, etc. I think the UI will take some time to generate these alerts and show them over here. In the meantime, I'll pause this video and wait for these alerts to show up. Right, so almost after 5 minutes, we can see that all these alerts have been generated. We dumped the credentials, and I think this is the alert related to the dumping of the credentials. We open this in full screen. We should be able to see some details over here. We see that metshell was executed, and after that cmd.exe was executed. Then whoami was executed and ipconfig was executed as well. Okay, we can close this. And if you want, we can go here and look at some further details, we can see that it was identified as OS credential dumping via technique, and then the sub technique was LSS memory. And we see some other details related to the processes, etc. All right, we can go and look at some of the other alerts as well. We see that there was privilege escalation via named pipe. This is exactly what happened when we ran the get system command. And we can see that services and then cmd.exe was launched. This is exactly the way that get system works. All right, so this is basically my minimal setup related to a lab, and this is very important for any person starting off in cybersecurity, especially starting off in the SOC domain, to understand what kind of alerts are generated by modern EDR and how you can look at them, how you can triage them, etc. As I said, this is the minimal level of a lab that I would recommend to anyone. If you have the resources, I would recommend that you create like an Active Directory environment with at least one domain controller and two clients. Install Elastic EDR client on all of them in detection mode only, and try to go through an attack. And for the attack, I would recommend that you go look at DFIR report. If you look at DFIR report, you will see a lot of reports of actual intrusions. From here, just pick out one and try to simulate as much of these details as possible. Try to simulate HTML smuggling, then try to run some sort of a phishing attack. Go through all of these things and try to see what you can do and what you can simulate. And the purpose of this is basically to understand what are some of the things that you can see in your EDR after these kind of attacks are simulated. Do some lateral movement, dump the creds, do an Active Directory takeover, and after that you will understand all of the alerts that are generated, what are some of the things that you will see. And these are exactly the same things that you will see when you will go in a customer environment or you will work for a service provider. All right, so I think that brings us to the end of this video. We have set up Elastic EDR in this video. We have connected it to an endpoint where we ran some malware, and then we saw some alerts over there. Obviously, this is only the beginning and this was very, very basic, but it gives you a platform to work on it in your own time. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.